Good afternoon. Welcome to Web Chat Wednesday at Emory University's Goizueta Business School. Today we're going to be talking about career success with our 2-year MBA program. I'm Nicole Hitpass, the Director of Program Marketing here at Goizueta, and I'm joined by our Career Management Center and 2 of our full-time MBA students. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a little bit, but before I do, a little bit of housekeeping. The first is that we want this chat to be as interactive as possible and answer as many of your questions as possible. So please submit your questions at any time during the chat. We'll do our best to answer them on air. We also have a team of folks behind the scenes that will be helping to answer your questions as well. Many of you have already submitted questions when you registered for this web chat, so we thank you for that, and we'll kick off by answering some of those. The other thing to note is that we are recording this web chat in its entirety, and we'll send that to you via email along with any slides that we show here today within the next week. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And Maureen, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Great. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Maureen Mannion-Leone, and I'm the director for the full-time programs at the Career Management Center. So I work with students both in the 1-year as well as the 2-year program.
Hi, my name is Gio Carrion. I'm originally from Peru, but I grew up in Atlanta. I'm a second-year student in the full-time MBA program.
Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Peltzer. I'm also in the 2-year full-time program. I'm a second year from North Carolina focusing on marketing.
All right, and with that, we are going to go ahead and start answering some of the questions that you submitted when you registered. So Maureen, let's kick this off by having you talk a little bit about the different career paths that students would take when they go through the 1-year program versus the 2-year program.
Well, I think it's important to remember the biggest differentiator between the 1-year program and the 2-year program is that the 1-year program does not have an internship, whereas the 2-year program, you have the opportunity to have an internship as well as go through full-time recruiting. So there are some career paths that fit a little bit better with the 2-year program. There are some companies that recruit through an internship. So if those are the companies that you're interested in, it might be better for you to do the 2-year program versus the 1-year program.
Great. And Gio, Amanda, do you guys were you evaluating both the 1-year and 2-year program? Did you have specific career goals that you thought would work better with the 2-year?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I knew my focus was going to be consulting, management consulting, and like Maureen mentioned, I think that's maybe an area that's a little bit more fit for the full-time 2-year program. So I did not consider the first year with that thought in mind.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I did consider a 1-year program, but decided the 2-year was better since I wanted to similarly switch career paths from analytics to marketing. And then the other thing I would add too is I came from a background of statistics, so I had no business knowledge, and so I felt that the 2-year program would allow me to take more electives and kind of build a more holistic bank of knowledge.
So I think Amanda brought up a good point, and I want to reiterate, if you are moving industries or if you're moving functions, the 2-year program is a great way to do that because you can utilize the internship to make that transition. So it's a good fit for folks that want to change.
That's a good point. And what about those who are coming in, maybe they don't know what they want to do necessarily?
Well, that also makes the 2-year a good fit, right? Because you have an opportunity to go through recruiting and to get an internship and see if that's a good fit for you, to see if you can almost try something out for a summer. You don't have the commitment of a full-time job with that particular company, but you have the opportunity to have a summer experience, and you also have the opportunity to come back and do full-time recruiting should that not be a fit for you.
Yeah, I know, and I know a lot of our classmates might have had a great time during the summer, but they were still looking for different opportunities, maybe even within the same field. So that's why one of the advantages of the 2-year program is having the internship, hopefully locking down an offer, and then still looking at your options.
So let's talk a little bit about how the Career Management Center actually works with students. When does that relationship start?
Well, the relationship starts the moment that students choose that they want to be part of the Goizueta family. So right after students deposit, the CMC will send an email welcoming the student to Goizueta, as well as giving them access to our career portal. We have an online portal that has a lot of content for students to prepare before they come to campus. So at that time, we'll ask you to fill out some surveys to get some information to understand what you're interested in. We'll connect you to a career coach. We will also connect you to a peer career coach, which is a rising second-year student who's interested in the area that you're interested in, or that you tell us you're interested in. And there's also opportunities to interact with coaches through, we have different calls. They're called functional calls, so you can call in and listen to folks talk about different areas such as consulting or banking. Students also have the opportunity in the summer before they arrive on campus to work on their resume with both their coach, with their peer career coach, as well as we have some proprietary software called VMOC that students can use to prepare. So once you decide that you want to be part of the family, there's a lot of things for you to do to prepare before arriving on campus.
How did that start with you guys? When did you first come into contact with the Career Management Center, and how did that relationship progress?
Yeah, so as Maureen mentioned, it can start really early as soon as you get accepted. I actually attended a Forte Women's Recruiting Conference even before school started, and so my coach knew that I was going, reached out to me, and helped me prepare my resume and my elevator pitch, as well as some interview practice questions. And then we actually scheduled a call prior to the conference for me to practice those things as well as get feedback. And so that was really helpful, having that going into the conference even before school started. So it can really start as early as you need it to start.
Yeah, definitely, and I want to second that. I had a very similar experience. I attended a diversity, job conference. I believe it was near July, and definitely the CMC was there for me. Like Amanda mentioned, setting up a call, reviewing the resume. Even personally, my peer coach, so the second-year student at the time that worked with me for my resume, truly made a difference. So definitely, the CMC is there for you, and also second-year students who want to give back, helping rising incoming people into the Emory family.
That's awesome. So I know one of the major aspects of the Career Management Center is pairing students with their personal career coach. Can you talk a little bit about how that pairing happens? And I'd love to hear from you guys about your experiences with your career coach.
So I briefly touched on it in the last question. When students choose to come to Goizueta, we reach out to them and send them a survey. And I know some students think, oh, this is just another survey. It's not really important. Mm-hmm. But it actually is important because we're asking you about the areas you're interested in and what your career goals are as you're coming back for your MBA. We know sometimes they change even between the time that you write all of those essays to apply to business schools to the time when you've actually made a decision. So we want to know the latest information on your career plans, and that allows us to match you with a coach. We have coaches that are more or less functionally aligned. So if you say you're interested in consulting, we have a consulting coach that will match you with. But that's not a rule. I mean, students can interact with whatever coach they feel most comfortable with. Some students switch coaches because of personality. Some students switch coaches or see multiple coaches because they're interested in different multiple functional areas. So we give an initial suggestion, I would call it, of which coach would be a good fit, but then it's really up to the student as far as how often they meet and if they would like to meet with other coaches.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess in my case, I was given my interest in consulting. I was aligned with our consulting coach at the CMC. He was really helpful, like I mentioned, preparing for that summer conference, reviewing my resume, letting me know what the consulting recruiting process was like. And like Maureen mentioned, really after our summer preparation, I felt like I had a good lay of the land. So maybe we met, maybe 2 or 3 times that semester, but that was a personal choice. Definitely, it depends on your style, depends on how often you want to ask a question, and also, but they're always there for you. Probably, at least in my personal experience, a 1 to 2 day response time on an email on a really big matter. So I know we've all had those emergency situations on the CMC. It's always there for you.
Yeah, and just to talk a little bit to the peer coaching as well, I found that to be very valuable. My peer coach, I remember over the summer, tore up my resume, and I was so distraught. Yeah. But then I revised it, and I remember then meeting with my CMC career coach, and my career coach there said I didn't even need that much more improvement on my resume, so
Yep.
it was kind of nice. And then on the flip side, I then volunteered to be a peer coach this summer for some students because I knew what a valuable experience that had been for me. And I also tore up their resumes, but they were also grateful in the end. So that's also, I think, a really great resource that the CMC sets up for you.
Yeah.
So obviously internships, big part of the two-year program. I'd love to hear from you guys. What did you do for an internship while in the program? How was that experience for you? How did you find the internship?
Okay, man.
Yeah, so my internship was with 3M, which is a multinational manufacturing company. And in particular, my internship was with their marketing and strategy development group. So basically that group works on projects throughout the organization related to marketing and strategy topics. And I found that internship actually not through the traditional on-campus recruiting, but through one of the diversity recruiting conferences called National Black. And what that is basically, it's almost like speed dating for jobs. So a ton of students go and a ton of companies are there looking to interview and hire students. And so I was able to get my internship through that process.
Awesome, awesome. For my summer internship, I interned with PwC in their financial services advisory practice in New York. So I spent the summer in Manhattan. Really, my project over the summer, we're working with a top 5 bank in Manhattan, helping them improve their revenue forecasting methodologies. So a lot of balance sheet work, a lot of quantitative work, a lot of data. Really was my first exposure to financial services, which was really cool for me. How I got my internship also, it was in a summer diversity conference, the one that I mentioned, but really the whole recruiting process is heavily happens on campus as well. So there's a couple of different paths.
Miranda, you want to talk a little bit about the types of internships that our students do, the breakdown maybe by function or location? Are there a lot of opportunities for different industries and around the country?
Sure. Well, we have students that are interested in a lot of different areas. Functionally, we seem to skew a little bit heavy to consulting, although we have students that are interested in marketing, we have students that are interested in finance, we have students that are interested in general management, and a lot of more students interested in strategy, which is very similar to consulting. So we have students that are interested in everything. Sometimes students seem to find they have a functional preference. Other times students are really focusing on an industry. We've seen in the last 3 to 5 years a lot of students that are interested in tech. And so we're skewing that way. And we have students that are doing different functional jobs within the tech industry. We have students that are, working in finance and strategy and marketing in tech. And so we've seen that area of growth in the last 5 years. But honestly, it was such a small program like Goizueta. The great thing is that you get a lot of personalized attention no matter what your career path is.
Nice. Yeah, and I just want to add that even for the fact that you do, personally, I did my internship in consulting, and I got the summer offer, but I still wanted to review my options. So on my full-time recruiting cycle, on my second year, I had an opportunity to obviously interview for more consulting companies, but also general finance, even marketing analytics. So I think that students not only think of one area and go there and that's it. You have an opportunity to, through the CMC and through the on-campus interviewing opportunities, to apply at different fields, even within the same cycle.
Yeah, and I would also add on the location side of things, a lot of the companies that come are from Atlanta, but we also see a lot from other areas. We've had a bunch of our classmates go to the West Coast looking at like Amazon and things like that. New York, I'm a little bit of an exception going to Midwest, but there are a couple of us that go there. So I think there's a good blend of opportunities if you want to be in Atlanta, but also if you want to be elsewhere, to be elsewhere.
Yep.
Terrific. So what happens if a student does an internship, but they don't get a full-time job offer, if that's something that they were looking to do? What are the next steps for them? Because I know a lot of our students get jobs from that internship.
Sure. So a little over 60% of our students get a job offer from their internship. So there are quite a few students, even if sometimes they feel like they're the only one, there are quite a few students who are going through fall recruiting, whether it is because maybe they're looking for a different type of company, a different culture fit, or if they're looking for something entirely different. So I think we mentioned before that is one of the benefits of the 2-year program, is that you have that opportunity to go back through recruiting now that you've had a summer experience, and to better target companies, or maybe even to try something different in fall recruiting. So there's definitely support for you there. You're actually an old pro by that time, because you've already been through recruiting your first year and you know what to expect. So after the summer internships, students will come back in the fall and they will immediately start recruiting. We have a huge event called Goizueta Career Connection, which kind of kicks off the recruiting, the fall recruiting cycle. And second years come, they dominate, they're there, they're networking with everyone. So there's a lot of opportunities for folks in the fall to do something different if they weren't necessarily, if their summer wasn't necessarily exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, and I would add to, one of the advantages of the 2-year program is that since you've had that internships and your classmates have had internships, you kind of have a better understanding for what kind of company or what kind of role you're interested in, and you can talk to your classmates. And then the other thing too is you've done all this networking last year, so I know a lot of my peers already had relationships and contacts at some of these companies from last year that they were able to then leverage in re-recruiting this year.
Yeah, for sure. One dynamic that if you're in the case that you are still looking for an opportunity during your second year, you'll talk to your classmates that actually have been to all the companies that maybe you were interested on, and maybe they will refer you to different contacts, and you start a new network that way. So that's definitely a big help for us in the second year.
That's a really great point. So the Career Management Center brings in a lot of recruiters to campus. You have a lot of connections, but there's a lot of value in your fellow students, and especially the power of the Goizueta Alumni Network. How does that play a role in recruiting? How are alumni leveraged in that job hunt?
I bet you guys can probably talk from experience.
Yeah,
better.
for sure. I mean, I know specifically, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I'm actually going back to PwC, and I know that the alumni network within that specific company, it's really strong. So all the people that come to campus specifically in this case for PwC are former alums. I feel I've definitely experienced that they're definitely invested in the school and the relationship that they have with the school. So for sure, all it takes is maybe calling someone on LinkedIn or getting their email and say, hey, I'm really interested in this company because of reason A and B. Can you speak to me? And the connection usually happens within a matter of days. So I actually had a really good experience reaching out to alumni, and I can definitely attest that that's a dynamic that helped me in my recruiting process.
Yeah, I also leveraged alumni in my recruiting process. Specifically, like when I was going to interview with a company, I would reach out to alumni at that company, and they would give me a better sense for what the organization was like, what they value, as well as maybe some of the interview questions that they might ask. So that was very helpful. And then also, after I accepted my internship, I found the alumni to be very supportive of me. All of them were very accessible and looked out for me during my internship. So that was really nice, a nice thing to have. And the other thing I would add too is, since we are a smaller school, like Gio mentioned, alumni respond faster. They get more excited to help you because they don't get as many people reaching out. So I think that is actually a very big asset that Goizueta has, is that smaller community, so people, they really want to help you out.
Yeah. And even when you think about alumni of these different companies, when you're a first-year student in the full-time 2-year program, you meet people in the class above you, which fast forward a year, they're already working maybe at a company that you want to recruit for. So you already have those contacts even both at the internship level from your current classmates and also your former second-year students. So you definitely have different avenues to talk to different companies and create networks within your path towards recruiting.
So Maureen, question for you
Sure.
that just came in.
Okay.
So while we were talking about the different ways to find internships and jobs, we had a slide up showing the different sources of employment offers. And the question is, what's the difference between the school-scheduled interviews and the other Goizueta sources that we're talking about on this slide?
Well, we had some great examples here. So other Goizueta sources could be through the career fairs. It could be a connection through an alumni. It could be a connection through faculty. Oftentimes students don't think about using their faculty members to help with the recruitment process or to find that perfect job. But our faculty make so many connections with different companies and do a lot of consulting, especially for companies within the Atlanta area, that they're also a good source. So there's other groupings of ways to get a job besides just the on-campus. So I know a lot of students think about recruiting, coming to Goizueta and doing all of your interviewing inside the building on campus, and we do a lot of that, you can tell from our statistics, but we also have other connections and other ways that we help prepare students to be successful for what they really want to do once they leave, their MBA.
Right. Thanks.
Sure.
So we've touched on this a little bit about the different industries that our students want to explore, both for internships and career. Can you kind of talk through that again? What's the breakdown of the functions or industries that our students typically pursue? Are you seeing any trends?
So consulting is a big, I know I said that before, so functionally consulting, there's also finance. We always have a big group of folks who go into banking in New York. We also have marketing. Data analytics is starting to become larger and more students are interested in that area. It's a burgeoning area. There's a lot of study going on here at Goizueta in that area, so we're seeing more students interested in that area. General management is always something that students are interested in. If they're not specifically focused on one area, they want rotational programs, leadership rotational programs. So I kind of went down the list, cascaded down through the list of how students, of how many students want the top versus the bottom. But I think the point I want to make is every student is different. Something that students need to think about is what they want, not what their neighbor's doing or their classmate. We're really here from the Career Management Center to help students meet those goals. And those goals can change throughout 2 years. But the point is to focus on your particular area and career path. One other trend that I think is important for folks to know and remember is that more students are doing different types of recruiting, later recruiting. A lot of the tech companies cannot forecast their recruiting a year, 2 years ahead of time, so they're interviewing more students later in the year. So students need, if that's what you want to do, you have to be a little more open and flexible about the timeline versus a consulting company which does all of its recruiting on campus in the fall. So those are some things to think about. How risk adverse are you? Are you okay with waiting until the springtime for recruiting, or do you want a more on-campus program and do all of your recruiting in the fall? So these are just some things to think about, and just to be, you have to think clearly and well what you want to do and not what your other classmates are doing, because we're hoping that everyone does exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think just one element is going to be that you have to be flexible, right? And you also have to make sure that you stay focused on what you want to do, but also place bets in different areas, so you are covering all your bases. For me, that was consulting and general finance, and also general management, for example.
So you went through the list of the common career paths. What about those who aren't interested in consulting and finance? And I think you touched on this a little bit about how risk averse are you and the traditional recruiting cycle. But for those folks who want something maybe a little more specialized, something that doesn't fall into one of those kind of traditional MBA career paths, what advice do you have for them, or how does their relationship with the Career Management Center differ?
Well, it doesn't differ in the sense that they go through the same process of preparing over the summer. We have one coach who is specialized in kind of that all other bucket. So she is great at working with students that want to do something a little bit different than the traditional finance, marketing, or consulting functional buckets. So you have a coach that's specialized in that. And I think this is where the alumni piece comes back to. We have alumni that are at every company in the world. So that's where our alumni network also comes into play, where we are happy to reach out to alumni for you and make connections for you in those more difficult areas to do, traditional MBA recruiting.
The other resource I would add to, just from that I used and I know some of my classmates have used, is the Goizueta librarians. So they're really good at helping you look for job opportunities or companies that are maybe a little more niche or might not fit exactly some of the things you're seeing coming to campus. So I also feel like that was a really good resource that I and many of my peers use. They'll help you kind of form that target list, and then from there you can start reaching out to those companies.
So we've talked a lot about what our students can expect from the Career Management Center. What do the recruiters expect of our students?
Wow.
Big question.
Yeah, so I think of myself as the bridge between students and recruiters. So we obviously have a lot of interaction with recruiters, and we have relationships that we have built with recruiters year after year after year. So recruiters do have very high expectations of Goizueta students specifically, because we say our students are the best. But they expect students, if you sign up for things, that you're going to show up. If you have an interview, that you're going to be prepared and have done good research on the company. They expect our students to be polished, and we do a lot of preparation in the summer to make sure that our students are meeting that level of expectations that our recruiting partners have for us. Another thing are, once a student takes an offer, they expect the student to show up. So we're very firm on our students that you need to take the time that you need in order to understand if that's what you want. If you want to continue to recruit, that's great, please do that. But once you commit to an opportunity, that you are going to show up day one ready at that particular company.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear from you guys what your experiences with recruiters have been. What kind of opportunities on campus or off have you taken advantage of?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can speak to the consulting piece, and I know that I don't think there's enough days for companies to come to campus sometimes.
It's true.
Yeah,
That's
it is
true.
true.
Yeah.
Specifically, now that I know that I'm going back to PwC, I've been part of, as a mentor of, the new cycle of events. We had a case preparation session where first-year students were exposed to the PwC casing style. We've had networking hours. There was a chat on just leadership styles and biases that you might have in the workplace. And these are all separate events that this specific firm is putting up to get to know the students. So the expectation from the firm, outside of you showing up, it's also coming in, being interactive with the people that are there, asking smart questions, and also already knowing, the reason why you want to apply for this firm, how you see yourself fitting within the firm, both personally and professionally. So for sure, there's many opportunities to connect with specific companies, and not only consulting. I think Amanda can speak to some other opportunities like that.
Yeah, definitely. From the marketing perspective, it's very similar. As Gio mentioned, there's several different sessions you'll attend, usually first an info session, and then there might be some sort of networking or dinner, and then there'll be the recruiting process, and then if you get an offer, there'll even be kind of a hosting day for people who have offers. So there's lots of different touch points and opportunities for not only the company to get to know you, but also you to get to know that company to see if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
So student clubs, a question just came in about student clubs. What role do they play in the recruiting process? Do they have connections with certain industries or recruiters? Have you guys been involved with student clubs?
Yes, this is a passion of mine. I'm glad you guys asked that question. So I'm actually the co-president of the marketing club at Goizueta. And so I'm very passionate about the fact that clubs can help students and pursue their career goals. So for example, our club, we host a panel of second years, and then first years can understand the different types of internships that they can go into. And I believe all the clubs do similar activities. We also help students prepare for marketing cases they might get in their internships, so we host a workshop. And we also help students practice interviewing. So I think one of the most valuable things you can do is practice with your peers who are also getting similar questions and can help give you that feedback. So there's a lot of different ways that clubs can help you prepare for interviews. In terms of connections, you know, as a second year, I've had a lot of first years reach out to me. Do you know someone at this company? And if I don't, I might know one of my peers who does. So it's a good kind of first stop shop for do you know anyone at this company, or do you know any companies that do X, Y, Z? And there's also a lot of coffee chats that go on between the first years and the second years within that are facilitated through the clubs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can only second that. I've been a participant of the consulting association here at Goizueta, and that's a really good way to do two things. Number one, second year students help the first year students with case interviewing, which is a huge component of the consulting recruiting process. So we actually have a schedule where during the week and the weekends, the second years will set 1 hour to case with a first year student. That's really one big component of the club. And the second component is that at least it's 2 years running that the club actually reaches out to alumni in different consulting firms to come to campus to also do a mock interview case interview. So for sure, those are two huge ways that I took advantage of a club on campus.
These are great questions. Keep them coming in. If you have any more, go ahead and send them in. We'll keep rolling here. We had one just come in now asking about social impact and social enterprise. So that's actually a pillar of focus at the business school as a whole. We have a center around that. There's a lot of activities around that. Maureen, can you touch on how the CMC helps students who are looking for a job in the area of social impact or social enterprise?
Sure. I think you mentioned some of the good contacts that we have. So that's most important for students to be tapped into that network. We do have a Center for Social Enterprise, which has 2 executives, more or less executives in residence there, that students can help be mentored in that particular area. Students that do participate or are interested in that area oftentimes recruit across different functions. So in this case, they might be most interested in a particular company, looking for opportunities within that company. And this is also where our Goizueta network plays a huge role. So we help students connect with folks in the industry that have been working within social enterprise roles and make sure that they understand what the career path looks like. And it's important for students to understand too that when they're looking at those career paths, to do a lot of research, which we help them with, but look at some of the types of roles that they would want and what did folks do to get to those roles. So sometimes for some of them, if it's a leadership role at a nonprofit, oftentimes people go to a consulting role first to gain some skills, build a network, and then move over. So we're very cognizant that students have a lot of options when they leave their MBA, and we make sure that we show them what all those options could be in order for them to make the best choice.
So we have a question that came in, and it's asking about, if I go to school at Emory in Atlanta, do I then limit my career opportunities to Atlanta or the Southeast region? And I think we have 2 folks here who could answer that question quite well.
Yep. Amanda, you're further away. I guess you can
Yeah.
start.
So yes, 3M is located in Minnesota, so I'll be going to Minneapolis next year. And as I mentioned, I got that through the off-campus recruiting, but there are also companies that come on campus, such as like Amazon or AT&T. There are other ones that also come to campus that are not Atlanta-based. Or even like with consulting, there's usually offices in all of the major cities. Right. So I do think there are, from what I've seen, a lot of opportunities to get good jobs, not necessarily in Atlanta, if that's what you want.
Yeah, for sure. My internship was in New York. I spent the summer in Manhattan. I had a full-time offer to stay in the city. However, I'm going back to full-time here in Atlanta. So again, I think it's just a matter of choice. I know specifically within consulting, there's a lot of flexibility around which office you're going to be located, given your preference. So that's definitely a component there. But I think the answer is certainly not. It depends on what you're focused on, and specifically when you are recruiting for companies, targeting companies that are in your specific geographic area of interest.
Thank you. Anything to add to that?
No, I think that they give the best examples. It really depends on the person, where you want to be, what you want to do, what company you're interested in. But we have seen a lot of students interested in Silicon Valley, being in the tech industry, and we always have a lot of students interested in New York. It's important to realize that the CMC has 2 different interview forums that students can go to and interview for full-time roles. One is in California, in San Francisco, and the other one is in Chicago. So students have the opportunity to go to other places should they choose, but it's really up to the students. Students seem to like this sunny weather here in Atlanta, so I think that's a big draw. The cost of living in Atlanta is great, and they can come off their MBA and buy a house, and so that draws people in. But really, we have opportunities everywhere.
So we have a few questions specific to industries. One is about opportunities for recruiting and post-graduation positions, specific to human capital management.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Do they exist?
No, yeah, absolutely. That has been a huge area of growth. I'm not sure if it shows in the employment report or not, but we oftentimes break down consulting, and human capital consulting is one of the large areas that students are interested in behind strategy. So absolutely, we have 3 or 4 different consulting companies that come here and recruit on campus for those positions.
And I'll just add too, there is a human capital club, and I think it's only growing, so that definitely is an area that's becoming more popular.
And then we had another question around investment banking, which I think we already touched on, that banking is, and finance in general is one of the top industries, but investment banking in particular, what opportunities exist there?
Oh, there are so many investment banking opportunities. We have such a great network in New York as well as here at SunTrust. So we have a group of students who are kind of shepherded at the beginning of the year. The Finance Club is very focused on the investment banking students, and they really plan out their year and help them every step along the way so that they can be successful. Usually it's about a group of 20 or so students, so they get to know each other really well, and we've had amazing success with our bankers in the past 5 years.
And I think one event that adds to that specific component is the New York Trek, right? Students in their first semester who are interested in investment banking get the opportunity to go to New York for a week and actually tour around all the major investment banks in the city, make those connections, and then start their networking process that way. And that's already built into the IB recruiting process at Emory through the CMC. So that's a big piece to highlight.
So another question that I think, Gio, you could probably chime in on here, it's about consulting. And I know we have a lot of folks who want to go into consulting. The question is about, do you have a lot of input in the location if you get a job offer for consulting?
Like any consulting answer, it depends. It definitely depends. So I will maybe answer that question with through my experience. So this cycle of full-time recruiting, there were some companies that were Atlanta specific, but I also got to do final round interviews with consulting firms that where the position was in Chicago, in New York, and even LA. So it all depends, and I think if you're a person who really wants to stay in Atlanta, then you're probably well set up for consulting here at Emory. If you're someone that wants to be outside of Atlanta, there are specific opportunities, and actually specifically in this cycle, there were probably a 50-50 split between consulting companies that wanted to be somewhere else. What are the top 3 cities? Definitely New York, Chicago, and then sometimes even the West Coast.
I want to add one point to that. We were also saying the last 2 years we've seen students interview for consulting companies and be placed internationally. So we've had students in the past 2 classes go to Shanghai, Mexico City, I'm not sure, a South American city. I'm not sure. It might have been.
No, yeah, but there was someone in France and
Yeah,
Morocco
someone is going to Paris next year. So we've not only seen the growth within consulting to different cities within the U.S., but we've also seen it internationally, which is exciting for students that either come from those countries or students that are open to working in those countries. So that's been an exciting development.
All right, so we're going to be wrapping up shortly, so if there are any last questions that you guys have, please submit them now. We do have a couple more queued up here. And so one is really something that I want to ask, and it's about our career outcomes. So we have great career outcomes, and we offer a lot of opportunities for students, but a lot of work goes on the student side too. So I want to hear, what is your expectation, Maureen, of our students? And taking advantage of what you guys have to offer.
Sure. So students think that I have a job drawer and just open it. No, I'm joking. No, what I expect from students is that they think of their relationship with the Career Management Center as a partnership. So we are going to work with you if you put in the effort and time to work with us. It's really important for students to be very transparent and tell us what they're interested in. Let us know when their interests change, and come prepared for conversations. I think Amanda talked a bit about a target list. We always have the expectations that students come into us and say, hey, this is my target list. These are the companies I'm interested in. How can you help connect me? What do I need to do to be successful with these companies? And that's the type of pre-work and thought that we expect from our students when we're working with them. We don't expect you to come to have that list in the summertime, but we do expect you to be thoughtful and thinking about it and start preparing for during professional development class, which is the class you have in the fall, and to learn some of those skills so you can be prepared for conversations and to position yourself best in the MBA job market.
All right, question about Career Management Center Week. Week.
Okay.
What does this event entail, and do you see it leading to jobs and internships?
Sure. So I'll talk briefly what it is, and you guys can share your experiences, what you did. So it's called Career Week, and it's usually nestled after your second block in your first semester here. And it's a time when you have a week free of classes, which you will need it by then, to just focus on your career, to have time to think about it, to have time to do research, to have time to interact with companies, maybe go to New York or to San Francisco to meet with companies. So it's really your week to prepare yourself for the recruiting cycle.
Yeah, so our year when we had the Career Week, it worked a little differently because we had some recruiting conferences the same week. But I can also speak to this year because I did help out with this year's Career Week. So I know students had lots of opportunities to practice interviewing. I helped lead a marketing case practice session, which I think the students found very valuable. As well as I know that there were some opportunities to visit companies here in Atlanta. I believe there were also treks to go elsewhere. So it's a good time to meet with companies, to start to refine your interview skills, to get ready for those interviews. And those are some of the ways that I think the week can be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's three main things that you can do during Career Week. Number one, practice interviewing. Any kind of interviewing. I know for consulting, you're just going to be casing probably every day during that week. Same thing with marketing cases. Number two, it's setting up 30-minute phone calls with your contacts in target companies. You can use every single day that week to reach out to different people, have multiple chats without the interference of your other scheduled items. And I think number three, even have an opportunity to take a trip, like Maureen mentioned, and go into a city to visit a specific company or participating in a conference. Those are the three main ways that you spend Career Week.
All right, so this is going to be the last question, and then we're going to wrap it up. And it's not a career-related question, but it's a great question. So we're going to ask it. And this is for Gio and Amanda. What makes Goizueta special to you? And how do you think it differentiates itself from other schools?
I'll start with a cliche answer, the people, for sure. But it's really true. I think for me, when I had a choice to, luckily I had a choice to pick between different schools when I was making my decision for my MBA. And what I really wanted to ask myself is, what is going to be the place where I am most comfortable in the classroom and outside of the classroom, where I am given the resources to advance my career forward. And for me, the answer for that question was definitely Emory, because of two things. I had met people like Maureen during the process, and former alumni and current students during my MBA application process that truly made me feel that this place was a small community where you can get to know people, connect with alumni, and actually enter a cycle where you're always going to be part of the Emory brand and the Emory family. And number two, and you can see on the stats, it's a place that's very successful at placing students where they want to be, and that it's two-way. The school helping you and you taking the responsibility to go where you want. So those two elements were definitely important for me, and that's why I'll be an Emory fan for life.
Well, Gio covered a lot of the same things that I would say. I mean, definitely the small community is really nice. I like too that you're able to take on lots of different leadership roles and really shape that community. If there's something you want to change about the school is very open to student feedback and just incorporating the student perspective. I would also add that being in Atlanta also has a lot of advantages. There's tons of companies here, and all of the big consulting companies, for example, have an office here. The airport is very accessible, and it's a fun place to be as well. Atlanta's a cool city. And then, I would just add to, it's nice to be at a top-ranked school. Academics are important as well as career, and so finding a good balance of those two things I think is a strength of the school.
All right, good answers. That's all we have for today. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. A big thank you for joining us online. A big thank you to Gio and Amanda, who you guys really want to hear from anyway. So just a quick note that we have a few upcoming web chats. One in December on the consortium community, and then GMAT tips in January, as well as our experiential learning within the program, also coming in January. We'll send out the entire video of this web chat along with any slides to you via email within the next week, and hope you had your questions answered. Thank you.